All right, how about now? Um, Prayer guide for the week, of prayer throughout our state and also throughout the world. I enjoyed it this morning. My man could sing, and I was serious when I told her. I said, I feel bad for you having to try to follow that up. It'd be kind of like me get up talking after Whitney sing. It'd be kind of pointless. Everybody would think, well, the good's done now. We can only go down from here. But I did enjoy it. You got your envelopes for Jenny Chapman offering. Today we took up $800. Okay. So we're at $1,220 total now. So we ought to have, 6 people up there? Is that right? Or am I totally off on that? I think 1,200 divided by 200 is 6. Is that right? Yeah? Come on, somebody give me. Miss Soto, you taught. There's math right there. All right. I think that's right. So we should have 6 people up there now. Yeah, I'm looking. I wanted somebody to give me a nod. Yeah. So, I commend you on that. Continue to pray about it. Think about it. We saw today where God's using it, which is sometimes I think we wonder where our money's going. And we got an example this morning of that. Our missionary moment tonight, okay, it comes from New York, New York. Do you know where Nepal is? How many of you know where Nepal is at? No, it's kind of over near India, between China and India. I guess it's a good example. So today we're going to pray for one of our missionaries who is from Nepal. His name is Sylvanus Bhandari. Sylvanus grew up in Nepal, and he was a Hindu. I'll tell you a little bit about the Hindu caste system and kind of where he's coming from. So I teach world religions as a part of world history. So Hindus have what they call a caste system. All right. So essentially, you work your way up. And if you're a peasant, you're a poor person. If you live a correct life, if you do the things you're supposed to do, when you die, you'll come back and you'll move up the caste system. So basically, and then if you do wrong, you go backwards. So they basically use it to oppress, to make the peasants feel like there's nothing they can do to earn, or they've basically done something wrong. That's why they're where they're at, okay? And that they got to do right in this life and live right in this life so they can move up in the next life. And then, if you're up there, you don't want to live poorly because in the next life you might move down a notch, right? So it's this, big bamboozle way to oppress, just a side note. But in 1992, he was still a teenager. He became a follower of Jesus and felt the call to share the gospel. Life can be hard for Christians in Nepal. Sylvanus felt led to plant a new church in America, so he came here. Now he's planting that church in New York City. Our church is helping support him as one of our North American missionaries through our cooperative program giving. Sylvanus called his new church the Global Mission Church because he wants people from around the globe to hear the gospel. New believers are quickly taught how to tell others about their faith in Jesus Christ. Today, let's pray for Sylvanus and his wife, Alino, as they visit and talk with people from many lands, and let's pray that many of those immigrants will hear the gospel and become Christians. So again, it's just, places like that, Christianity is going to be pushed away, and really anything that goes against the caste system, the higher up are going to knock down because it's messing with their way of life, right? So he's taking an opportunity to come to America where he has an opportunity to kind of practice freely, even though there's still going to be kickbacks, right, here in America. So let's take a moment. I'll ask Charlie if he'll pray for us, and we'll pray for Sylvanus and his family in New York. Amen. All right. Tonight I'm going to try not to keep us too long. I've got a couple things I want to talk about. And we're going to start in Matthew 21:18 through 21. So if you'll take a moment and turn to Matthew if you're going to follow along with us. I feel like my students, I give them a moment to catch me or to write everything down on the board before I start talking. So the title, I guess, is what we're talking about is Jesus cursing a fig tree. And I'll read the entire passage and then we'll kind of work our way through it, and I'm going to bounce around a little bit too. So in the morning, as Jesus was returning to the city, he became hungry. And like most of us, when we become hungry, he starts looking for something to eat. He sees a fig tree by the wayside. He went to it and found nothing on it, but basically finds nothing but leaves. And he says to it, "May no fruit ever come from you again." And the fig tree withered away at once. And his disciples are immediately amazed. They're marveled. Mine says marveled. They say, "And how did the fig tree wither at once?" And Jesus answered them, "Truly I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but even if you say to the mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, it'll happen. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive it if you have faith." Now, there's a couple different ways I'm going to go with this, and maybe it kind of dawned on me when I was looking into this. I start thinking about how to apply it in different ways and different messages that are coming from this one little, parable, or, seeing this miracle that takes place. First thing is I like to think about a miracle, right? I think sometimes we take for granted the opportunity, and I think how cool this would be to be walking around with Jesus, and he says, "You know what, I'm hungry." Think about this, the events that are taking place here. You're walking around. Jesus said he's hungry. You walk over to him with this tree. You see this big, beautiful fig tree. You're expecting fruit. There's no fruit. Jesus gets mad, looks at it, tells it to wither. You're not going to bear fruit anymore. It just, boom, it gone. I couldn't imagine that, right? I think sometimes we take for granted, we see all these miracles that take place throughout the Bible, and they don't compare. And you start thinking about, amazing things that you've seen, or, and I'll end up, I'm sure y'all get tired, I end up comparing it to what I do. Think about football players that I've seen, coaching against or playing against. I know Lakewood had a kid, and Tyler probably tried to tackle him more than I did, but his name was Dalvin Bracey. He played quarterback, and they ran midline, and he would ride it into the line, and he would pull it and come around the end, and he'd run, and he'd be gone. I think the 2 games we played him 2 years, he had 600-700 yards rushing in the 2 games. I remember him coming down one time, Coach Howell getting mad, throwing his Bojangles cup down. We just couldn't tackle the kid. We couldn't tackle him. And I remember thinking, man, that kid is awesome. But it compares to nothing to Jesus just withering a fig tree away, right? It's something that we think's awesome, amazing. You can't compare it. Another one last year, the Huntley kid, the nose guard that's at Carolina now. We go to run a little inside trap. He takes the center in one hand, guard in the other hand, throws them out the way, hits the running back, points at me and says, "That one ain't going to work tonight." I looked at Coach Anderson and said, "That one ain't going to work tonight." And, you scratch it off the list. We ain't running that one no more, okay? And that's a big, he's 6'5", almost 300 pounds. He moves, kind of runs like a deer, and you're like, man, that's amazing. But does it to compare, the things that are taking place here, right? And I think there are a lot of events we see, and sometimes we think are amazing, but it's not. You can't even put it on the same playing field. Something as simple as a fig tree, right? You compare the fig tree incident to some of our other miracles, right? Raising the dead, seeing Peter walk on water, Jesus walk on water. The fig tree seems very minimal. But how many of us would freak out if we saw a fig tree just disappear, right? Now, there's a couple different ways I want to go with it. One, why did Jesus get upset with the tree? It didn't have what? Fruit, right? It didn't have fruit on it. And I start thinking about it. Well, how many times, put yourself, I guess, in the place of the fig tree. How many times do people outside of the church, and it says, right, the fig tree was full of leaves, okay? I think sometimes as Christians and as church members, really not even necessarily as church members, but as Christians, we have people who look at us as the fig tree. And lost people, I think a lot of times, and people that are Christians that are struggling, they get hungry. And they start looking for something. And they end up crossing your path. And you look like this big, beautiful fig tree. Oh, they're members at the church. Think about myself. Well, he's a deacon at the church. He goes to First Baptist, right? He's on Facebook Live. I see him every now and then talking. And they come to you looking for food, and they find what? They find nothing at times. And that can place a burden on you. How many times did Jesus put people in our lives that come looking for fruit, and we got nothing to give? So maybe you hadn't thought about it like that. One way I thought about it tonight. And I think a lot of times for miracles to take place, for things that are miraculous to take place, we have to be bearing fruit, right? I mean, and we really have to be in a spot that we're prepared for that miracle to happen. In my profession, I'm one that thinks, if you're not preparing for it to happen, you're preparing to fail. So, I mean, if you're not spending time in prayer, if you're not spending time in the Word, you're not spending time around other Christians, talking about it. We think about it all the time, talking those things up that we want to happen, praying about those things, more than likely they're not going to happen. Okay? And then sometimes we hit a point where we think we're doing enough, where we think I'm praying, and it just doesn't happen, and we come into that thing where is it Austin's time or is it God's time? Okay? And how willing am I to stay on that path and to stay committed and to stay trying to find myself where I'm that tree that's not just beautiful, big, beautiful, with a lot of leaves, but I'm bearing fruit. Now Jesus says two things, right? So after he freaks the disciples out, he makes that fig tree wither away. He says, truly I say to you, so verse 21, Jesus answering, they ask him, how do you do that? Okay? How do we make miracles? How do we make good things happen? He says, truly I say to you, you have to have faith and no doubt. And you not only do what has been done to the fig tree, but if you say to this mountain, be taken up and thrown into the sea, it'll happen. And whatever you ask in prayer, you will receive it. Now, one thing here. First thing he says, you got to have faith, okay? And the Bible literally, so let's look at, we talked about not having faith, being prepared for faith. How do we make these things happen? So if you flip over to Mark 6, 4 through 6. Mark 6, 4 through 6, okay? Jesus is in Nazareth, right, which is his hometown, okay? And we think about our hometown pretty fondly, us as individuals. I know I do. Like, I don't get over to Atlanta a whole lot, but when you pull in and you see the little sign now, you kind of reminisce, right? You're back at home, you go in the IGA, people know you. Hey, how you doing? Good to see you. I haven't seen you in a while, right? But Jesus is kind of in a different spot. Nazareth had kind of really become unfaithful at the time, okay? And if we're a little bit before, in some of our versions, he's coming clean off of flipping tables over at the temple, right? I mean, we're really in an unfaithful spot. So verse 4 through 6 reads, and Jesus said to them, a prophet is not without honor, except in his hometown, and among his relatives and his household. And he could do no mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them, and he marveled because of their unbelief. So here's Jesus being marveled, right? Think about that. What marvels Jesus? Unfaithfulness is what marvels Jesus. It's like, here I am. I couldn't imagine. I'm from Nazareth, right? And yet I'm taking place in all these miracles. I'm doing things, right? Trying to lead you. And yet there's just unfaithfulness there. And in many ways it kind of marvels, I think, surprises him. And it says what? I mean, it says that all he could do was lay his hands on a few sick people and heal them, all right? And he went on to the town among teaching. So he continued to teach. But Nazareth, because of the place they were at, I think Nazareth, you think about it, we look at Nazareth, we're thinking, that should be a fig tree with fruit, right? I mean, that's Jesus' hometown. And yet Jesus goes there and he finds what? He don't find fruit. And that limits the ability. It's almost like, and no way do I want to compare Jesus to Santa Claus, right? But I mean, my mom used to say, if you don't believe, you don't receive. And I think a lot of that can compare to Jesus, right? In a way that if we don't have faith that things can happen, more than likely they ain't going to happen, okay? If that faith is not there. Now, the second thing he talks about doubt, okay? And he says that we have to, so we flip back, let me flip back over. Matthew 21, let me get there myself. So he says, truly I say to you, you have faith, and then you can't have doubt. And I think doubt's something that I think the devil uses constantly with us in many aspects of our life. I think sometimes like we have that doubt that if I spend time, it's almost like Whitney and I were teaching Sunday school together. And there were a lot of times where you would have a little bit of doubt. Well, is anybody going to show up? Is it even going to matter? Is there, a purpose in me putting this together? And there were a lot of times where if I wasn't prepared or if I wasn't at a point where I was ready to share that fruit or be fruitful, then God wouldn't give me an opportunity. And I think sometimes he gives us opportunities in our worst spots just to kind of wake us up. and realized that there was an opportunity there where someone was coming and they were hungry and they were looking for fruit. And we look like a place where there should be fruit, right? I mean, the church looks like somewhere they should be able to come in and get fruit, and yet so many times it's not. And in many ways, they get the opposite. So talking about doubt. And I'm going to use Peter, okay, because I really like Peter. And I think sometimes faith and doubt go hand in hand with Peter, right? Peter, to me, he's known for a lot of things, but I like the walking on water, okay? So if you think about Jesus, and I think we have to be at a point where we're willing to have that faith to step out of the boat. I think he kind of gets a bad rap, right? I mean, he's the one who eventually, what happens after he steps out of the boat? He sinks, right? Okay, he sinks. But how many of us would step out the boat, right? How many of us would gotten to that point? And I think sometimes that happens to Christians. We get fired up, right? The preacher, not me, all right? But the preacher gives an awesome sermon, an awesome message. And he almost urges us, right? And I think that happens a lot of times to Christians. We get fired up emotionally about things in the moment, and we'll jump out that boat. But then we start walking, and we start looking for everything going wrong, right? Peter starts looking around, and it's like, well, what in the heck am I doing? And that doubt creeps in, and we immediately do what? We immediately begin to sink, okay? Now, doesn't mean Jesus can still reach down and grab us. I think as Christians, we can still reach down and grab others. Okay, so my challenge to you is we have to at least be the Peter that's willing to step out of the boat, right? There has to at least be enough faith there to make us willing to take that first step. But it's kind of like a marriage in many ways. That lust eventually wears off, right? And then it becomes a process. I mean, we hate to say that, but it does. It has to be something that we constantly make time to do. And to stay on that process eliminates that doubt, okay? It's kind of like me. Whitney gets mad at me because I'll sit there and watch film all day Saturday and then get up and I'll meet. And, we just constantly in preparation all week. Football-wise. But how much time do I spend, with this wise, Bible-wise, reading my book and preparing myself? Like you ask Coach Floyd, I'm willing to bet if, you ask me, if I'm ready on Fridays, when I'm ready to be fruitful on Fridays, you dang right, okay? Right? I've busted my hump all week, ready to bear fruit. But how many times do we take that same aspect of this, okay, into our mission? I know I don't, all the time, okay? It ends up taking a back seat to everything else we have going on. We're fruitful in other ways in our life, okay? We find ways to be that fig tree with fruit. But then when it comes to sharing the gospel and then finding my role in the church, finding my role in the family, being a part of the community, like we're talking today, she comes in and talks about ways to get involved with the school, ways to get involved with our community throughout our state. We're nothing but leaves, okay? That's sad to say. We look good, sounds good, we're members of the church, but there ain't no fruit there. There's no fruit to feed anybody, and people are going to go hungry with leaves. I mean, they just do. It's kind of like, that those apartments back in the day, there's no food in there, but they got a $1,200 stereo, okay? We going hungry, but we got tunes, okay? So the big thing is for me is that, one, we have to be prepared, and that faith's got to be there before things are going to happen. It's kind of like putting the cart before the horse, right? I mean, you can't expect things to go your way with a lack of preparation and a lack of faith that Jesus can make it happen. And the second thing is that once we take that faith and we step out and we make that move, we have to be disciplined enough. And the Bible talks about discipline throughout and our ability to, you don't want it to become routine. I don't want to say that. But you have to have a process where you're studying the Word and when you're making time for prayer. I mean, we just do. We're so caught up in what's going on. I mean, think about other aspects of your life. Do we get excited about our 6 a.m. prayer time as much as we do about that 7 o'clock ball game that's coming on? And we plan our whole life, our whole daily routine around certain things, okay? And I do it. I mean, I'm the absolute worst about it. I'll plan my whole day around lunch or around, practice and make sure things are right. And sometimes we're just, we don't even see the little miracles or the little things that are taking place because we're so focused on what's going on without God. And we think, we don't see the miracles that happen in our lives on a daily basis. I was thinking about one this week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it was like 80% chance of rain, 90% chance, 100%. So I'm thinking, well, we ain't practicing, right? and then God just takes it away, right? Minor miracle in Coach Floyd's life. That might not be a minor miracle for you. Major miracle for me because we need to practice, okay? But it's just an opportunity for us to stop, look, see what's going on, right? I mean, do we think about Wednesday night? And I can't say, and I'm preaching to myself here, but there are certain things through the week that, we're not going to miss. But do we plan our weekly calendar around being in church on Wednesday night or being with each other on Wednesday night? And even if you're not going to be here, do you plan on spending time in prayer? Because I think that's how that you can't get the fruit without preparing for it. I mean, it's just impossible. Okay, you can fake it. You might get some leaves. You might look okay. You might if I got my collar shirt on, my tie, my Bible in my arm, I look like a fig tree, right? But is there any fruit there? And I think that's the question. And I think that upsets Jesus. I think he gets upset, right? I don't think any of us like to be called hypocrites. And I think Jesus gets upset when we play that role, okay? Because there's no real fruit being bare, okay? All right, I'm almost done. Now, the good thing I think about this whole deal is that when we do find ourselves in a situation where we're the fruit the fruit that's not bearing a tree, the tree that's not bearing fruit, Jesus chooses not to just wither us away, right? Almost a lot of times he does the opposite. He tends to put other people, and I like to call them, think about gardeners that get put in our life, okay? Or I guess you'd call it a tree carer, gardener, I don't know. But someone who comes in and puts a little fertilizer, trims those limbs back, okay? Makes room for fruit, spends time with you to hopefully get that fruit to come out. He doesn't just zap and wither us away. I mean, think how quickly. I don't think there'd be anybody sitting in here right now if he did that. We'd all be withered away. I'd have been withered away. I'd be under the dirt, not on the ground. I'd be under, okay? But we lack opportunities, and I think sometimes he puts people there to help us grow and to help us bear fruit. I know he does me, and some of you are sitting in here. And not only that, your challenge as a Christian is to find other Christians and be somebody who's not just taking fruit, but helping them grow that fruit that's there. And helping them not just be leaves, but be bearers of fruit. So when the time comes and somebody comes and they're hungry, whether it's Jesus or Joe Blow off the street, we're ready to provide fruit for them, okay? And not just be a pretty figure. And then lastly, going back to the miracles, because we kind of went two different ways with it. The other thing is miracles, is that, mentally you have to be in a place where you're ready for that miracle to happen. And many of us, it's almost like, one man's trash is another man's treasure. And I think sometimes that works with miracles. Something that you see is very minor that happens in somebody's life could be something, a big thing. I know I told Whitney, Friday morning I get up, I put a coat on, not a coat, a pullover I hadn't worn since year before. I pour $40 out of the pocket, right? Minor miracle, okay, that happens. Something, and you think about how my mind works, right? I'm so negative when it comes to my profession. We're 0-2, we're not where we need to be. And I'm not saying God put that $40 there to kind of give me a little, hey, everything ain't so bad, Austin, right? I mean, it did. You can ask Whitney. I sent her a text. I said, we winning tonight. This don't normally happen, okay? All right, but I did. And I think sometimes he does that just to boost us. And I'm not saying God's going to put $40 in your pocket tonight, okay? Whitney might have put that $40 in there, okay? I don't know, but it was there, right? It was there as an opportunity to kind of just, it's like a breath of fresh air. It's something just to get me upbeat. And they're there, and we have to be ready. I wasn't ready for that, okay? But it kind of hit me, and it prepared me for other things. So, my big thing is 2 words I want to leave you with. You got to have faith, and they go together. I don't think you can have one without the other. You can't be a doubter and have faith, okay? So if you're going to have faith, you have to fight that doubt, and that's a hard thing to do, okay? I tell it all the time with my guys. You sit around and wait for bad things to happen, they normally happen, okay? If you're upbeat, you're optimistic, you look for the good, okay? You have faith that the hard times ain't going to last forever, all right? And you don't have a doubt that you're going to be able to get through it. I think sometimes God can use you more than we see, even like Peter getting out walking on that boat, a little bit of faith. He says it at the end. We think all the time we're incapable. Jesus says with these 2 things, faith and no doubt, you can look at the mountain and say go in the ocean, and the mountain will jump in the ocean. What more do you need? So that's my things. When you leave here, you need to have faith, and you need to get rid of that doubt. And as a fig tree, you need to be looking for ways not only for yourself, to have fruit and be prepared when those moments come, when people come and they're hungry and they're looking for food. Okay? You also need to be someone who is helping prepare other fig trees and helping grow their fruit so that they're prepared. And that's the whole purpose of us being here tonight, is to help each other grow. All right? If I was coming here for just me, probably wouldn't be here. All right? And I hope you're the same. We're in this whole thing together. So, with that being said, do we have any prayer requests? I think I've got a hand up here. No? I know most of you know, so and I don't think it's a big secret, my family's struggling with COVID, my immediate family. My mother, Jerry, Fletcher, and Fallon are all positive. Is that it now? I think Brad was not positive. Okay. But from what I understand, they're all feeling better. Most of it's been mild, but they have been dealing with it. Coach Molina, a guy that works with me, is going back for more tests this week. Continue to keep him in your prayers. He's struggling big time, and he's got cancer back now for I think the 4th time, so he's fighting through it. And it's like we talked about right now, in many ways looking for a miracle, and trying to prepare ourselves for that, and that God's will ultimately be done. I think that's what he's searching for. But that doubt creeps in, right, easily with situations like that. We've got many reasons to be doubtful in our country right now, and not only our country, our community. So we need to find opportunities to look for and have that faith. All right, so nobody else we need to be praying for. Newton family, that funeral's tomorrow, or okay. I don't know. Okay. Hopefully we'll have more information later. Reminder too, we have a deacons meeting Tuesday night. I forgot to announce this, and then we are pushing our business meeting back 1 week. So next week will be a prayer service, and then we'll have a deacons meeting following deacons meeting, business meeting following the next Sunday or next Wednesday night. Excuse me. All right. Well, I hope you learned something. I know I did. I say it every time. I end up talking to myself. So good for me. If you didn't get anything, it's fine. Just me. All right. Richard, do you mind closing us out?